Hi guys, it's Amy with mindfulartstudio.com, and you might know that I've got the next session of my intuitive art journaling experience. Diving Deep is on sale now for the fall session. And so I wanted to pop in today and do a little sample lesson for folks who either just want to learn a little bit more about intuitive art journaling and what that might mean and how to get started with it, or if you think that the class might be for you and you're looking to get a little sense of it and a little taste and kind of discern, is this right for me? Hopefully this will be a great opportunity for you to do that. Remember that you can spread the art love by sharing this video and liking it, and we can get everybody creating today, hopefully. So let's dive right in for Diving Deep. So for folks who join the class, they'll get this wonderful, 75 pages with the front and back, but I think it's like 64 or something like that of actual content. PDF, which basically has all the content of the entire class in written form for people who like to be able to kind of reference things. I'll give you a little sense of the table of contents here. It goes through how to take advantage of this class, developing your intuitive art class, art elements and composition, those scrubbed backgrounds that a lot of people like that I do, all different types of painting techniques, and how to then dance between those technical skills and welcoming in your intuition and your feelings, and how to kind of mix it all together for a wonderful creative flow in your art journal. Yeah, so I don't want to spend too much time kind of going through that, but I just want to kind of welcome you in if you're curious what we're going to be working on. We're going to be using, I love the golden high flow paints. Some people mix their own high flow acrylic paints. I don't, so I can't really give any advice about that, but a lot of people do, but I like the golden. And as folks pop in, if you can say hi. Hi, Marina. And I'd love to see you. So why don't we get started? So I have, I'm going to switch our view here. So I have a page that I started working on some time ago. Now this is something very typical that I'll do. I'll have a page that I started, and maybe that's kind of as far as things took me. And so I pause. I think when I had started this page, maybe I ran out of time. Thanks, Marina. And so frequently, I'll just this is part of the intuition, right? It's not so much about, it's really process-oriented art when you work intuitively, at least the way I do. Now, of course, everyone's different. Everyone's going to talk to you about different types of approaches. And I can only teach you what I do, obviously. So I'm going to attempt to talk and draw at the same time here while I give you a little bit of orientation to the way that I use, or I kind of understand intuitive art journaling. So for me, I try to really dance between using what I know about composition and, all the different technical art skills, and what I feel, right? And what feels right on the page. And I really try to let it be a balance and a dance between the two. So for instance, right now, hi Linda, you notice I did this much more spaced out, and as I was doing it, I was noticing that and thinking, well, I can maybe pop back in and do more little leaves in between. But then as I stood back, and this is something else I do a lot, and I super recommend, whether you're working intuitively or not, is standing back from your work. Because when you're, this close versus when you're this close versus when you're 5 feet away, things change a lot. And I'm going to show you, just as an example, right? Now, of course, this is not maybe going to focus great, but can you see how that looks really different? And I know that it's a little darker, but just bear with that. But it looks really different than when you're looking at it here. You get a very different feel. And so it's really important to get those different perspectives on your work and to take that into account. So I constantly stand up when I'm working. I get away from the work and see it from a different perspective. And that also gives me pause to hear that internal voice. So again, when I started in here, I was thinking, oh geez, notice that I, spaced it out too much. But then as I stood back and saw that, I thought, oh, I like the openness of this. I like the fact that it's unfinished, and so it's about tuning into those little sparks of a thought that start in your head that I think until you get used to it, you might not always listen to. So I follow that. Hi, Ann. Oh, those leaves fell off maybe, right? And so what is that about? And it's not about overanalyzing it or getting super psychological about it. It's just about letting your imagination play with the image and see where it might take you, right? So I don't clamp down and say, oh, well, it's representative of blah, blah, blah. No, I'm saying you just let your imagination play and maybe let a little narrative, a little story kind of start to creep in. So I'm going to let that be because I'm going to listen to that intuition. And it does happen sometimes that, I'll start in on something. So, I had this impulse to have some of these little leaf shapes. And notice this is just a teardrop shape. This is really simple, right? The ones that are here are more elongated, but this is not a complicated shape. This is like a little bit of a stylized flower or plant, I should say. And I think it's also really important, and if you're on my mailing list, you know that I was talking about this yesterday in the email that I sent out about the class. It's really important in the way that I work to just make space for things not being attractive. Because if you're looking at your art practice as a practice, right? It is a practice. It is about practicing. Then you're opening up space for things to evolve and change and to take risks and for things to not be quite perfect, which sometimes, yes, does lead to you making things you don't care for, but it also, importantly, leads to you making things that you really love that you never would have made otherwise. And so that's what to me is so magical. Now, and one of the things I like to do in intuitive in diving deep is really let you in on what I'm thinking, right? I'm starting to do that right now, and I think that's part of what helps people, because I can't tell you what your intuitive voice is. You have to figure out through doing it what your process is, and my job as a teacher is to give you an example and to ask good questions and notice things and try and guide you as you develop it. So I was thinking that these were the leaves, but now I'm thinking, and here's the dance, right? So the way that I did this, it's kind of coming off this way. So it's not really, it's all coming off here. So now I'm going to bring some from over here too. And I'm aware I might not like this. This may not come off aesthetically in a way I like, which might lead me to make some different choices with what I do. And that's okay. I'm okay with the not knowing. I'm okay with the adventure of just trying it out. And I'm just going to see what happens and where it leads me. I'm also already aware, because I do this kind of thing a lot, that I'm going to probably come in with paint here. The other thing I do is I turn my work a lot. So now it's almost like, okay, are these raindrops? It's another cool thing about this shape. It's just so ubiquitous. It shows up in so many different elements. And I like to run my patterns off the page because it makes it look more natural. So I really try to keep it kind of random seeming. Okay, so now, see, now's a time when I would stand back. So I'm going to do that with you. So we get the perspective changing. Now really I want to stand much further back, but I think we're going to get not a great view, so I'm going to change where we're looking here. You can see my studio being slightly messy at the moment. There, okay. So now you can see that reads pretty differently. Already I can see there's kind of a hole here. I'm thinking maybe there needs to be something here. So see how I'm dancing in between the aesthetics and my intuition, right? I'm allowing my kind of aesthetic eye to have a say. But see, now when I come back here, that doesn't feel right, so I'm not going to do it. And I'm just really, at each moment, checking in, seeing what feels right. And right now, some little drop shapes feel right to me. And I'm so curious if any of you work this way already, and if so, what your experience is like. Hi, Elise. Elise is one of my super diving deepers. She took the diving deep class and then was also in the extension class. And she does some really beautiful, especially pattern-based work that are really graphic and tremendously beautiful. And she's now combining those with the scrub backgrounds that she's learned in a way that I think makes it all really pop. And she's also done some kind of really cool work with the drawing methods. I know, it's nice to find you too. So now notice I ended up putting in some of those over here. I feel like now I'm gonna let one of these shapes kind of find its way here, but I'm not gonna worry about overlapping. I'm gonna let it be a bit more loose because that just feels right. Again, this might not feel right later, but I'm not stressing about it. I'm just following the impulses as they come to me. I'm trying to really just obey that intuition about what should come, because in a way, this isn't totally about the aesthetics and the art. In a way, it's just about a process of self-discovery. And that's what makes journaling this way such a beautiful adventure. And remember, if you're watching and you know this is something that you enjoy, you can help spread the art love by sharing the video today and liking it. And that's super helpful because then we can all help each other make more art. All right, so I'm just giving myself a moment to pause. See how I kind of go slowly too? I think a lot of people, a lot of my students, it's just too much rushing. That gets in the way. And I'm also not afraid to abandon ship. You know, if something really doesn't feel right, I'll just let it go. Move on, you know? And that's really okay. Hi, Linda. We're just working on an intuitive art journaling page, very much in the style of what I do in the Diving Deep class. It's a sample lesson. So if folks have their paints and everything, maybe some pens, you can create right along with me. And it's like a little art date. An intuitive art journaling date. And I gotta say, I feel pretty lucky that this is what I get to do on a Wednesday morning, for real. I'm so glad you're able to do it too. All right, so right now it's feeling to me like I've got some plants kind of blowing around in the rain. We're having some lots of rain today, so that could very well be. Right, and I don't freak out and I get little irregularity like that, like, oh my God, I suck, I messed up, my work is horrible, why am I bothering to do this? Does that sound familiar? Right, I know some of us really struggle with that inner critic. And that's a part of what we're really about in this class too, is like learning to just recognize and be present with the fact that that critic does pop up quite a bit. And just kind of recognize it and say hello. And then just invite it, as Elizabeth Gilbert says, to kind of sit in the back seat. It's allowed to be in the car, but it's not allowed to drive. And I think that's a great analogy. And I think being gentle with your critic is really important, because it comes out of a real place of fear and just, discomfort. And I think it's important to be gentle with ourselves and to really honor those feelings, but not let them dictate what we do or don't do, because life is too short for that. And I really feel like my 80-year-old self is not going to be too happy with me if every time something seems a little bit intimidating and scary, I jump ship, if that makes sense. So, in a minute, I know I want to come in with some color. And I'm sort of in my percolation station in my brain, kind of letting it swirl around in there about, okay, do I want to finger paint over this? Do I want to do some brush work? Do I want to brush in the plants? Do I want to include some writing? And I think I need to bring the 2 pages together a bit. Right, so see how there's my technical skill coming back, pulling things together. So see how there's this dance between technical skill and just kind of obeying intuition. And you just kind of keep dancing back and forth between those two things. The other thing that I think is really important that we do a lot of in the Diving Deep class, and that I do a lot of in my art, is to just really use art making as an opportunity to tune in. Especially now with all the screen time we spend. Excuse me 1 second. I don't know about you guys, but my allergies this year have been unbelievable. All the screen time we have, I feel like slowing down to do these patterns and make these marks is just an opportunity to like feel the pen in my hand, watch the shapes appear, look at the colors, feel the texture of the pen in my hand. Tristan says, finally caught you live. Can you list dates for live sessions with times? It'd be awesome to tune in. Tristan, I apologize for being unpredictable for you. Given my artist way, I haven't been sort of planning these. Just kind of the way my week has been, just kind of popping in as I can. But if I'm going to do another, I will have you in mind and try to list ahead of time. And I'm so happy you're here. And by the way, nice picture. Looks like a really lovely family photo you've got for your profile pic. So anyway, I'm just really using this as an opportunity when I work this way to just kind of slow down and tune in. Now, obviously, these plants are more careful than these plants. It's a little hard to work on camera, talk, and do everything at the same time. Although I guess I do a lot of that. So I'm gonna take my own advice and slow down a bit. And again, I do turn my book quite a bit. And that really helps me both to make my marks more accurate, but also to see things differently and see what my piece needs. Right now I'm using a micron pen in size 02. And I really like this teeny tiny little point. It's really fun. The 03 right now is kind of my favorite. Tristan says, thank you. I'll keep checking back and hopefully have time to practice at the same time. I know that would be fun. All right, I'm going to throw in, let's see. This looks a little bare up here to me. And I'm going to throw in another little planty, kind of running right off the page. All right, so now, let's see if I can raise you up a bit so you get a more full view. So now, see, now's the time when I would stand up. I'm going to stand up the work and really just take the opportunity to consider what I'm seeing and decide what it feels like it needs. And I take my time. You know, I could stand here looking at this for a couple of minutes. You know, and I let myself notice things that stand out to me, like I'm liking the way that there's a leaf missing here, and then like either another leaf or like a raindrop kind of coming in there. That's interesting to me. And again, that's the kind of place where I would let my imagination start to play. So I'm feeling like, And see, this is where I really am showing you my true and honest process, right? Because this isn't planned. I don't know where this is going to go. This could turn out to be a really ugly page. Let me just put it out there, right? It could be great, could be terrible. I just don't know. But that's part of what makes it fun and adventurous. Now, because I work with the Golden High Flow paints, and you know, they think that possibly they're a little toxic, I always wear gloves. I think the cleanup is much easier than using glove cream. I'm just shaking my paints here. So I really prefer working that way. Some people like just using the glove cream because they like not having the barrier of the gloves, but I really like having the gloves now that I'm used to it. And sometimes just shaking up my paints kind of gives me a minute to figure out what's needed. And, oh wow, that was uncapped. Cool. Careful with that lesson. Luckily I had my finger over it. Yeah, so I like to really give myself a minute to just kind of sit with the work and see what it wants and what it needs. All right. And I've got all kinds of different colors out in front of me so that I can allow my intuition to just kind of speak to me, see what it wants. And so let's see, I am feeling I feel like we're gonna go for kind of letting this be a background, kind of an underdrawing, so to speak, and just really enjoy some color. And finger painting, in my opinion, is just a really cool way to kind of get into that in the moment kind of experience and get very in touch with your images in real sense, right? You're touching it. You're so in touch with it, you are touching it. And you're pushing and pulling with your hands. Now I'm using right now raw sienna, burnt sienna, and teal. That might all kind of shift and change, but let's just see where it takes us. Again, no plan here, just kind of pushing and pulling some paint, and I'm gonna let myself explore. Mix in a bit of the raw sienna. Obviously now that's gonna give me some green tones. Don't want anything to feel too planned or perfect. I know from experience, I like some white with this color mix. So I'm going to throw some of that in there. You can see that it's going to be more or less opaque at times, you know, where it'll give you more or less coverage. And that's interesting to play with. Oopsie. And the reason I use these paints so much is I love the layering effects that you can get. They're really translucent at times. You can see sometimes I'll lay down my paint straight on the page. They dry fairly quickly. And you do want to be careful of this spine. It's very easy to drip paint through the spine and get it onto a bunch of your other pages. I both am protective of my pages, but not overly careful. So for me, the right balance is not getting too uptight about my journal, letting there be some mistakes and whatnot, but also at the same time, not disrespecting it and so forth. Now, this is, let me see which one this is. I think this is one of my Moleskine journals, and it's a sketchbook journal, so it's not really meant to hold a ton of paint, which means if I rub too much, hi Lisa, if I rub too much, there's another diving deeper student. If I rub too much, I'm going to get kind of like paint balling up on the page. So I want to be aware of that and not overwork it. I think that probably makes sense to you. Now, if you are working along or you do catch this replay and work along, please post your work if you want. I'd love to see it and kind of spreads inspiration around. Let's see. You know, and even when I'm just moving paint around with my hands, I'm looking at the composition, right? I'm looking at the way there are lines and movement going this way and this way and this way, and I'm looking at how the eye gets directed around the piece. There is composition, hi Shelley, even when you've got, you know, really loose abstract art. And for some students, that's kind of a new concept, and it takes a little bit to see that. And that was definitely something we worked on quite a bit in Diving Deep, is learning how to see that composition. And then again, kind of dancing between just what wants to naturally come up and, you know, then allowing your deja vu, Shelley, what naturally wants to come up, and then what, you know, when you feel like, okay, I feel like I need to bring in my aesthetic eye here. And you can see how there's some nice kind of what's forward, what's backward happening already, even this early into working a piece. And it is early, with, you know, the drawing and the painting. And it's like, what's underneath, what's on top, what is this about? But see, there's lines here, right? They're not hard lines like the ones with the pen, but there are lines here. And so you're looking at that, and composition is really about, all it is how are the marks in this space directing your eye in how to move throughout the space, right? And right now it kind of is bringing us, everything is kind of bringing us this way. And the key is, when you're moving the eye through, do you have anything, if it brings you out, does it bring you back in? And right now, I think we're not doing a bad job of that. But again, I don't want to get too hung up on that and get too tight, especially now at this early stage in the piece. And I think that's another kind of common misconception when people don't have a lot of art experience yet, because students come into diving deep with a whole range of experience. Some have a lot of experience in art and have been fine art students and really want to develop that intuitive, expressive, deeper soul-searching art journaling experience. And other people want that, but also need a lot of the technical pieces. And so it just makes for a great group, because it's really diverse and everyone is in the same boat, developing their skills, listening to their inner intuitive voice, and learning about what that means. And it's amazing the way that the variation in training really doesn't have a giant impact. It's not like you look at the work that folks are posting and there's some giant variation. No, it's amazing when you work this way, what is possible for everyone. And I just love the layering of these paints. See how you get this like sensitive layering there? I really enjoy that. And I've worked with this palette pretty much one other time, pretty close to this palette. And that kind of brings me to another important point, which is to repeat yourself. And that's something we do a lot in class. We work on working in series, because that's how you learn, right? I think a lot of beginning art journaling people kind of start and, they do one thing and they're like, oh, it didn't come out. I stink. Which, like, if you think about a sports analogy, you would not arrive on the basketball court and like take 2 shots and miss and go, oh, I stink. Or, go to a practice for one time and say, I'm so terrible. It's just not the way it works. And it's really the same with art. Shelley says, it's true that regardless of experience, the diversity in our group did not make it much more intimidating. It actually connected us in such a beautiful way. And learning from the group's dynamics, in addition to Amy's teaching, was a wonderful experience. If you were thinking of taking this adventure, dive. And I think my fellow divers watching this would agree, right? Oh, that's nice, Shelley. And Diana is with us. Hi, Diana. Happy to have you. Right, so kind of allowing and Lisa says she agrees, kind of allowing my intuition to or my imagination to kind of play a little bit here and talk to me. If I notice, part of intuitive art journaling for me in my process is just learning to tune into what I'm hearing. Elise says she agrees as well. So it's learning to listen to that imagination and what it's starting to talk about. So, if I hear like a little like, oh, that reminds me of an ocean. Oh, that reminds me of like the view from above the earth, right? I don't just let that fly by. I'm like, oh, interesting. And I let that idea just kind of marinate a little bit and roll around in my mind, right? I think we're used to kind of just dismissing those thoughts sometimes. But those thoughts are gold. That's where your life as an artist begins, right? That's where the ideas are. That's where the good stuff is. All right, so now feels like a good time to turn this and see what I'm seeing when I turn it this way. See, now you can see how once you've got paint, and especially abstract paint happening, this gets really important because things really change. And I'm wanting to get a little bit looser here. So I'm gonna let myself work a bit faster, at least for a moment. Getting some white in there and then quickly grabbing some teal. Getting some nice blend in there. And I'm wanting to pull it off the page. Sometimes I'll use the heel of my hand to blend when I've got a glove that's kind of loaded up. And Lisa says, the high flow paints are incredibly fun to use. The colors, the blending, the layering, I love them. Yeah, that's what I love too. All those things. They're just so powerful. They really just offer a lot. And they are super intense, which I enjoy that. Right, so I will continue to work this piece, right? And I'm just using a little bit of a paint at a time, right? Again, given that this is not like a watercolor page or something, I can't overwork it because I'll ball up the page. But, you know, I'll continue to work it and see kind of what feels right, looking at different areas, and sometimes it's clear to me what something needs. Sometimes I'm not sure what things need and I just kind of focus on an area, on something that's working and keep moving with that. Right, see this layering? This is like gorgeous color. Composition-wise, that's changing things, right? Because the movement is generally more this. Hi, Margaret from Scotland. Just realized you're alive. Will I be able to replay the beginning? Absolutely. And actually, you all remind me, I think I need to plug in here because I'm running low on battery, but I don't want to stop what we're doing because I'm having so much fun. So let me just do that before I run out of juice. And hey, this is alive, right? So this is the sort of thing that happens. Run low on battery. And then I gotta pause you for a sec while I plug in. So now I would say too, right? Like it's possible that I will keep the markings underneath. It's possible that things will evolve and I won't keep it. And I need to be open to that possibility and not kind of hang on too hard to what I started. Let me see if that's going to like that. So far that doesn't seem like it's juicing anything up. One second, folks. So yeah, it's funny the way this dance works. And how much dancing I really have to do. which PS, I also really do sometimes dance in the class just to get people warmed up and get your funny bone tickled. Okay, let's see if we can get some juice going to this phone. In the meantime, I'm going to grab a different glove so I don't get paint on my hand. And hopefully we'll be in business. So, you should be looking like, let's say this was your piece. Now again, I'm going to say a lot of things. Your job in this class is to hear what I'm saying and take it in and take your own consult, right? Like your aesthetic sensibility, your intuitive voice may take you to a very different place. But the guidance of the process, right? Sometimes what I'll say is really applicable to you, and sometimes it's not. But the guidance of the process is what I think applies to just about everybody, right? About learning to really hear yourself. And so sometimes, I'll say, I'm not a teacher who's going to say, very often say like, oh, I think you should really think about this and that and the other. Make this change, this change, this change. Sometimes I will. Like if you want actual technical advice, I will say that. But I will also always say, but you need to take this into like your own wisdom and kind of sit with it and make sure that feels right to you. I do not want to, I couldn't possibly have your gorgeous, intuitive vision that you're developing. And I don't want to get in the way with that, or of that. And so it really is about, as a teacher, helping you to hear your voice, not my voice, right? We have my voice. We don't need another Amy. We need another Shelley, another Lisa, another Margaret, another Ursula. Hi, Ursula. Or not another, but we need Ursula, right? So that your voice is there. Shelley says, hi, Paula Scory. This is Amy, my art teacher and creative coach I have talked to you about. Enjoy watching. This is a lesson in how to get as much paint as possible on your gloves, apparently. Right, and so sometimes I'll have an area where I'm like, oh, this is getting kind of rich and interesting. I have a low-grade worry it's getting a little too intense and different than the rest of it. But I'm going to try to kind of, okay, I'm going to listen to that, but I'm not going to shut it down in kind of a tight, worried way, right? Because again, when you stop experimenting and you stop letting it be, you want to make it a practice. I should put that in the positive. You want to make this a practice. See, now look at this rich, deep tone we're getting, right? And the paint's getting kind of thick in a sense, and it's really rich. I don't know a better word than that. Woo! That is fun. And any one mark that I make, using the side of my hand again, any one mark I make could remain or it could end up changing. And that's the other thing. I think that people have this conception when they first start that the art is really quick, right? And that you can do a painting in like an hour or something, but these things take time. And that is to be enjoyed, right? Even when I end up with something that frustrates me, or I didn't get what I wanted, or maybe I pushed it too far and I lost something, quote unquote, lost something I liked. There is so much to be learned, so much. And I know and I trust and I understand that it will influence my art the next time I create something. And again, that's the beauty of working in a series, right? Because now that'll influence, I can choose maybe even a similar palette or a similar theme, and it's influenced by that. See, and you can see how the layering is important, right? I have those deep colors underneath, but it felt a little too, and composition-wise, there was like this bar happening that felt jarring given how loose and flowy the rest of it is. So I'm covering with another layer. It's not that it was wrong, it just needs another layer. And I'm just letting this evolve. And so are any of you working right now? And if so, how's it going? And also, if you have questions, please, I'm here to answer them. That leads me to another thought. It's okay to say you like your work. We're so afraid to do that. We're so afraid to say, like, I'm good at this, or I like this, or this is nice. You're not bragging. It's okay to say, I like this. I think that's part of the beauty of just showing up, right? Like Julia Cameron likes to say, your job is not to control the quality of the art that comes out, whether you're sitting down to write every day, or art, or whatever it is. Your job is to control the quantity. Right? That doesn't mean that you should sit down and not try and just do whatever. Oh, good, Elisa's working on her inchies. But it does mean that you sit down and you just do. It is a practice, right? So of course you give your effort, but it's in the middle. It's a balance. You don't get so tight, uptight, out of sight that you can't let any of that creative energy through and be that channel. All right, it's probably time to take a look at this from a distance. Let's see if I can get a better view here. Leave this here for a sec so you can contemplate while I get adjusted. All right, now the colors obviously are going to get a little messed up. And you can see, you don't see a lot of those underdrawings, but they're kind of there, which I think gives some interesting depth. So this is upside down, at least in regards to the book. And P.S., I don't get too hung up on what's upside down and what's not. So, and sometimes I'll work like this because I can see this needs some white. Because in terms of composition, I've got this block of brown coming. It's like a entity walking in the door. And I feel like this white is coming to meet it. So I'm going to work on that. But can you see how even in abstract there's composition, right? There's a shape here, right? See this blue shape here that's kind of happening? It's subtle, but it's there. And so even with finger painting, smudgy finger painting, you are working with composition. Sometimes I'll realize like, oh, I'm getting a little too uptight. And then I try to just do something to break things up because then I know it's not going to work as well. And I have plexiglass down on my table, which is why I'm putting paint directly down here in case you were wondering. Sometimes I'll get too much and I just kind of dry my hand a bit. You know, and sometimes I overdo it and I have to go back and layer again. But the layers are a big part of what gives it that richness. So see how there's this kind of cylinder-ish shape, kind of echoes that leaf shape a bit happening here. And then there's this happening. Just kind of extending that a bit. I don't know if I'll keep it or not. I want a little bit, I think, of wispiness. Kind of like that. So now there's a little bit of this happening. Sometimes I just kind of pause and breathe into it, if that makes sense. See how different it is when you turn it over? It's kind of astounding, actually. And I can like something one direction and not like it another. I feel like over here it could use a bit more depth. So I'm going to lay in a bit more light and then come back with the teal. So yeah, at this point, I could go ahead and just continue to tinker with it until it felt done, right? Might need more layers. I could see maybe this part could use a bit more. I could use it as a base for doing some writing about just what I'm feeling or something that's bothering me or something that I feel joyful about. I could use the entire space. I could just use some words. I could do just white in certain areas so it's kind of hard to read. Right? A lot of different choices here for incorporating writing. But you can see how in a little bit of time we've got like a nice beginning for this page. I might end up doing patterns over this. I could then come back with a brush and do some painting. I could use this as a background to do a drawing over it. But this is how we learn about listening to the intuition, layering, and just using the different skills that we use in the class in just a lot of different ways and combining them in different ways to get a lot more depth in the pages, both in terms of the actual materials, the depth with the paint, but also in terms of what you can say and figure out and discover and explore and adventure, right, through the art, because you're not planning it out. You're not doing really like planned out thing. You're really just on this adventure where you don't know what's going to happen, which is just super fun. So I'm really here to help offer that to you. If this feels like something that you're really interested in, you can, I'll drop the link for the class into the comments. But it's, you can find it on my class page. It's Diving Deep is the name of the class. And it's on a pre-sale price right now through Friday. On Saturday, the price goes to the regular price. So if it's something that you're thinking about, before Friday would be the time to do it. All right, guys. So actually, ladies, thank you so much for being here and sharing this time with me. I really, really appreciate it. And again, I'm here if you have any questions about what we did today. I hope that you got a nice little intro for intuitive art journaling, and I will see you very soon. Bye, everybody. Have a great, great day. Bye-bye. And it's mindfulartstudio.com/classes, and you'll see Diving Deep there. Oh, good, Shelly. I'm glad that you found me. It's always fun to find you. Take care. Bye-bye.